5 signs that an elderly person may be in their last year of life. These are warnings that should never be ignored. Have you ever felt a quiet sense of anxiety creeping in, not sharp but lingering, making you not want to talk to anyone or even step outside? At first glance, it seems like just aging. Everything looks normal on the surface. But there's an underlying feeling that this isn't just fatigue. Sometimes the body sends very subtle, almost imperceptible signals that aren't symptoms of illness, but rather signs that deserve attention. Understanding these signals means you can provide the elderly person with what they truly need: warmth, peace, and presence. Not to fix, lift, or tidy up, but simply to be there. This information isn't easy to digest, but if you're listening to this now, it means you need it. You already feel it's time to look deeper. You'll learn about 5 signs that are important to recognize calmly and without panic. Pay special attention to the 4th sign. It's very important. I would like you to rate how helpful you found this information on a scale from 1 to 10. Imagine you arrive at a friend's house and there's an unusual silence. Once, an elderly person would rise early for breakfast, to watch their favorite show, to tend to their little routines. Now, they often stay in bed, not because they're sick, but as if they see no purpose in getting up. They sleep for 16 to 18 hours, refuse to go for walks, and hardly speak. I don't want to. I can't. Then they turn away again, facing the wall. At first, it seems like the reason might be fatigue, the weather, or low blood pressure, but after a few days, it becomes clear. This isn't just a coincidence, it's a state of being. During such periods, the body starts to conserve energy. It shuts down everything that isn't essential, like movement, conversation, and interest in the usual activities. This isn't a whim or laziness. It can be a sign of inner exhaustion, natural, physical, and quiet. This doesn't mean that something will happen tomorrow, but it's a signal to take it slow, not to demand energy or cheerfulness, but simply to be present, offering not active assistance, but attentive support. What's needed? It's that calm presence, a gentle word, a hand on the shoulder, the warmth of a blanket. No reproaches, no hurry. Sometimes the most important thing is just to sit in silence together, so that the person knows they're not being rushed or judged, but accepted for who they are in this moment, in this state, at this stage. In these moments, it becomes especially clear that helping doesn't mean getting someone back on their feet, but rather preserving silence and love where inner stillness begins. Another significant sign. You bring him a plate of his favorite soup, fragrant and hot, just like he always loved it. But he turns away, eating slowly and with effort, barely chewing. By the 3rd spoonful, he quietly says, "I don't want any more." Sometimes he simply closes his eyes, and other times he pushes the food away, as if it no longer matters. You offer something else, asking, "Maybe tea? A fruit compote?" But the answer is the same. "I don't need anything." These moments are confusing. It seems like stubbornness or a lack of appetite, a temporary discomfort that can be waited out. But it's important to understand. There may be much deeper reasons at play. When the body enters a stage of gradual decline, its need for food and water naturally decreases, as if it understands that it no longer requires the support it has relied on throughout its life. Digestion slows down, metabolism changes, and the brain and internal organs begin to operate in a more economical mode. What once seemed essential, a full meal, a glass of water, a snack, no longer elicits any response. This isn't about giving up on life. It's about transition. It's about an internal restructuring where physiology stops being the main condition for existence. During this period, it's especially important not to push, not to persuade, and not to evoke feelings of guilt for not eating or drinking anything, because any pressure here does not strengthen, but rather exhausts, irritates, and repels. What truly matters is creating a warm, calm atmosphere, offering not a feast of food, but gestures of attention. Small, warm, aromatic portions, tea in a beautiful cup, a spoonful of compote with a childlike flavor. Even if they don't eat, the very fact that you offered with love rather than demand will mean more than you think. Sometimes, just a few sips are enough for them to feel that they are not alone, that beside them is not a caregiver with a schedule, but a person with a soul. Remember, during this time, what's important is not the calories, not the routine, not the quantity, but a gentle, almost imperceptible gesture that says, "I'm here. You matter to me. It's all okay, even if you don't want to eat." The next sign is as follows. You talk to him as you normally would, but suddenly you notice that he doesn't respond right away or doesn't understand what you're saying at all. He might ask what day it is, even though you just told him a couple of minutes ago. He may confuse times of day, call you by the wrong name, or unexpectedly start talking about something that happened many years ago, as if it were yesterday. Sometimes his gaze becomes distant, his voice quieter, and the pauses between words lengthen, as if his mind is retreating inward into a place where it's no longer connected to reality. At first, this is frightening. It feels like the person is losing themselves, that something strange is happening to them, and you want to shake them, correct them, bring them back to reality, and explain that it's not 1975 and that their grandson isn't a neighbor from the army. But it is in these moments that it is especially important not to argue, not to correct sharply, and not to take offense at what's said. This isn't necessarily a sign of imminent death. Sometimes a person just wants to close a chapter, to let go, to wrap up their life neatly and with dignity. They aren't always looking for answers. They speak to free themselves, and the greatest support in this is not to interrupt, not to turn away, but to listen until the very end. What's important is not to comfort with familiar phrases, but to look them in the eyes, nod, hold their hand, and speak from the heart. I hear you. Thank you. You matter to me. I'm here for you. I'm here. Such moments are remembered for a lifetime. And even if you can't change the course of events, you can be that quiet anchor for someone, not a savior, but a presence, not a distraction, but a source that allows them to stay in their truth. When it's time to say goodbye, you shouldn't turn away. Instead, approach with respect, an open heart, and the love that may be the most important thing we can offer in that crucial moment. All these signs are not a sentence. They don't mean that everything will end tomorrow, but each one is like a gentle bell signaling, what matters now is not control, not treatment, not fighting. It's presence. And if you recognize any of these descriptions in what's happening around you, don't rush to panic. This isn't about fear or an ending. It's about the opportunity to be truly present, calmly and tenderly, until the very end, so that later you won't have regrets about not being there, not saying what you needed to, or not just sitting quietly and holding a hand when it was needed. What should you do now? You don't need to change everything at once. Just slow down. Spend more time together without words. Listen without interrupting. And remember, the person in front of you is a whole story. And now, it's the last chapter that can be lived with warmth. You may not be able to extend their life, but you can fill it with what will remain: memories that comfort, warmth that lingers, meaning that returns. And when one day you close the door behind you, what will stay in your heart is not anxiety, but a quiet knowing. I was there. I did what I could. With love. Another very important sign. You're sitting next to someone and suddenly notice that their breathing has changed. It becomes irregular, almost like it's flowing in waves, sometimes shallow, then a pause, followed by another short breath. Their voice is barely audible. They speak in whispers or remain silent altogether. Their hands and feet begin to feel colder, as if the warmth that used to come back easily with a cup of tea and a cozy blanket is now fading away. The color of their skin shifts. Pallor appears, spots emerge, and their fingers become thin, almost translucent. These signs are often perceived as a lack of strength or overexertion, and the immediate instinct is to fix something urgently, to add another blanket, check their blood pressure, or call a doctor. However, it's important to understand that such changes aren't always indicative of illness. Sometimes they are a natural process where the body gradually slows down and retreats into silence. When the heart and lungs operate differently, and when metabolism begins to wane, the body redistributes its remaining resources to vital centers, causing the extremities to literally cool down and lose activity. What once easily recovered with sleep or medication now requires no intervention, only gentle support. What's important in moments like these? It's not so much about action as it is about attention. Warmth doesn't always have to be physical. Sometimes it's enough for a person to feel that there's calmness around them rather than chaos. A cozy blanket, a well-ventilated room, moisturized lips, a drop of oil on the skin, and a silence that isn't oppressive, but alive, filled with your presence. There's no need to comment out loud on how bad or scared they look. It doesn't help, and only heightens anxiety for everyone involved. It's better to simply say, quietly, "I'm here. Everything is calm. Just rest." It's important not to fight for the person they used to be, but to be with them as they are now, with a weakened voice, labored breathing, and a cold hand, yet still with the same soul that continues to feel, hear, and need you. Pay attention to this sign. Sometimes you hear phrases like, "I'm leaving soon," or "I would love to see my mom one more time," or maybe he starts giving away his belongings, asking to pass on a photo album to someone, writing down names, saying, "Thank you, you were there for me." At first, it might seem like just sadness, a sudden memory, or a random phrase. But if you listen closely, you can feel that these words carry not anxiety, but a certain clarity, as if acceptance has already taken place inside, and now there's just a need to finish closing the chapter. Many people fear conversations like these and try to interrupt, saying things like, "Oh, don't say that. You have another 100 years to live." But behind such phrases lies our own tension, our unwillingness to hear what the person is expressing with such depth in that moment. In these times, it's important to remember, a person may sense the approach of the end far earlier than tests or doctors can indicate. Intuition, subconscious awareness, and accumulated wisdom all come together to create a subtle sense of timing, leading them to begin an inner farewell. To the past, to their belongings, to the roles they played for others.